So as I said, my name is Eric Harless. I am the head backup nerd here. That is my title. I've been with the organization a little bit over 7 years, entirely focused on the Enable Backup product, a little over 25 years in data protection, disaster recovery, business continuity, with a lot of different vendors that you either love or hate. Mainly product management roles, although I have done sales, support, and worked as a system engineer as well. So you're looking at a mixture of small to medium business, enterprise, and MSP focused backup and recovery or data recovery products that I've helped develop, deploy, manage, or support. If you'd like to reach out to me on social media or via email, connect with me on LinkedIn, you can do that. My credentials are at the bottom there. It's eric.harless@enable.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at @backup_nerd. So what is office hours? I see some new faces or new names here, as well as a few guys that are here each month, it looks like. But office hours is focused around data protection, and specifically the Enable Backup product. We'll talk about it from all editions, so nothing is like I said, out of bounds here. But it's a monthly session designed to help you achieve successful backups, increase that likelihood of recovery, give you an opportunity to suggest or learn about the roadmap. It's a live Q&A, open discussion format, so bring any type of questions you might have. Why is this working? Why is this not working? Why did that change? When are you guys going to do this? Now, while I am no longer in the product management side of the organization, I do interact with those guys quite a bit. I can make sure that those feature requests are passed forward or direct you to the appropriate forums where you can post those requests yourself and allow your peers to vote and or comment on those as well. Ideally, though, what I want to do is foster a community of backup nerds and gurus that understand the product, that can also interact with other backup users and help them out, from a day-to-day best practices and experiences. Obviously, I work for Enable, and I can tell you how something works or why it should work. But hearing how your peers and your counterparts are utilizing it and what's been successful for them actually has a lot more value, at least in my opinion. Ultimately, though, helping you become as efficient as possible is what we want to do around the product, and that may be through training, it may be through scripting, automation, having a one-on-one session where we can do a health check to look at your environment. All of those things are possibilities. So I've got a couple polls I want to do to start this off, just so I understand the audience and make sure I'm talking to the right context from a product perspective. So my first question is, what edition of Enable Backup do you guys use? This is a multiple choice answer, so we'll be able to launch that. You should see on your screen now. The question, though, is what edition of Enable Backup do you use? Is it the RMM integrated version, commonly referred to as Managed Online Backup, or MOB? Is it the Essential integrated version? So it's an iframe that shows up inside of your Essential dashboard, or are you using the standalone version of Enable Backup? The chances are you might be using multiple versions. Maybe you're utilizing the integrated version for your workstations, your documents editions, but you've got servers or something on the standalone side, or maybe you've just utilized standalone for the Linux servers or the Mac workstations that you've got under management, and you're using two versions, or you've migrated from one to the other. Just let me know which editions you are currently using. And if you're not using any editions right now, you can skip out on this particular poll. Looks like we've got a good response here. Let's go ahead and close that out, and I will share that. So it looks like we're 50-50 on Essential integrated and standalone, and about 17% utilizing the integrated RMM edition. So obviously at 117%, we do have some folks that are using multiple editions. My next poll here is about your experience level. How proficient are you with Enable Backup? So we may have some backup nerds here as well, and that's perfectly fine. Some newbies, some frequent users, occasional users. Maybe you used it some time ago and you're looking to get back into the product. Maybe you just heard of it, or you've not used it at all. So those are all perfectly fine. Once again, no questions are off limits here. We might go deep on some topics, and we can stay very high level on others. Don't be afraid to ask a question if I say something you don't fully understand, or feel free to book a one-on-one session with me so we can go through some more stuff in detail. Okay, so we'll give that just another moment here, and go ahead and close that out. And we'll share that so you guys can see it as well. 71% frequent users, that's great. We've got some occasionals and some heard of it but not used it. So we got a mixture of folks here. Once again, perfectly fine. I'm glad to have all audiences here. You'll all take something a little bit different out of this. Hopefully you will take something out of it though. We'll ask about that at the end of the session today, okay? We'll hide that. So I want to start off just by giving you guys a little bit of a update on features and functions that are either planning to come into Enable Backup or ones that have been recently updated or rolled out through our global auto update process. Now, I'm not going to go into the release notes in a lot of depth here, but you can actually get notification or updates or monitor the release notes as they're updated by visiting status.in-able.com. There you can see updates for all of the various products, but specifically you can register for them, get notifications of pending updates or betas, trials, things of that nature as well. So we're currently running with the 21.7 release, but I'll give a quick recap on 21.6 because it has some relevant features. 21.6 had or saw enhancements to our Microsoft 365 backup product. Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint now all retain the same 7-year retention. And that was an adjustment to the SharePoint and OneDrive sides of the house, which were previously just a 1-year retention model. So we've synchronized that so that OneDrive and SharePoint match the data retention policies for Exchange. And that's an automatic update or enhancement to the product. If you're utilizing our Microsoft 365 protection, you'll automatically get that extended retention now on your protected domains. 21.7, we saw some enhancements here on AP user rights, remote commands from a UX perspective, making that more usable. SharePoint restore performance enhancements, and that is a common theme over the last quarter or so. I think we've got some more SharePoint speed improvements coming in 21.8 as well. So looking to just continually to enhance that API access, try to get the most out of backup and restore for SharePoint specifically, but Microsoft 365 as a whole. Some recovery UX enhancements as well, and I'll pull some screens up here so you guys can see what these look like. 21.8 is a pending release. I think it should be rolled out this coming weekend. So we'll see there preview for the subscription management portal, and that's going to be a preview for partners that have previously registered for access to that. Some improved shared mailbox detection in Microsoft 365. We'll see additional SharePoint speed improvements, as I mentioned, as well as some UX improvements around the way we report or count or visualize billable M365 users. But let me show you about the details on that. So 21.7, this was a recent release. This was July the 17th. So now, if you go into the user management side of the house, we're going to introduce hover over tips. So these little circle eyes here that talk about the different roles, link you to documentation, explain more things in product around user management. User management is very important. You want to ensure that you are utilizing least privilege access for your users, so that way they only have access to the items they need for their day-to-day operations. We further expanded the functionality so that you can individually control API access. So as you create a new user or go in and modify an existing user, you can now flag, either turn on or turn off access to the backup API. And it's something I utilize a lot. I do write custom scripts and tools to help enhance the backup experience. A lot of those utilize the backup API in order to perform their functions. So any user credentials that are prompted for API access will need this API authentication option turned on inside of the user management section of standalone backup. Now, if you're an existing N-central backup user or an RMM backup user, you're not going to have direct access to the backup API. The API is what RMM and N-central use to manage access. But if you are a standalone user, then you can grant or restrict that API access. Remote commands dialog. Inside of remote commands, we made enhancements to both the hover over tips. So you've got tips now that give you syntax around the various remote commands. And we've also improved the output. So that as you're looking through those remote commands, the user-friendly names made it more I guess more intelligent, no, that's not the right word I'm looking for, more intuitive from a user experience perspective. And I'll actually bring that up in product so you guys can see it here in just a moment. Improve Microsoft 364 restore time up to 50% in some cases. Obviously, if you're getting good restore speeds already in your environment, I can't guarantee everything is going to see a 50% increase, but some of those slower environments where we were having some constraints, we've seen some significant improvements there, and it's still something we're working on as well. We went to Microsoft specifically to look at their Graph API, and some of the items that we were asking for just are not available in the API right now. So we've had to go off and reinvent or build some of that interface ourselves in order to get the various lookups and various performance enhancements that we're shooting for here. Also in 21.7, we updated some of the usage, some of the wording around the Microsoft 365 billing users. So you can see on the screen here, at least I think you can see on the screen here, on the left-hand side over here, you can see, no, it's not coming across very clearly. I do apologize on that one. You know what, I'll see if I can bring that up for you in product as well so that we can look into it in depth. But we adjusted wording on that one so that you can understand what was licensed and billable versus what was shared or unbillable. And then of course, if you tick the shared mailboxes and then you identified that one of them was also showing up under a billable for some reason, the goal there was to identify that, oh, well, maybe there's legacy backups tied around SharePoint or OneDrive, or maybe you've got some additional licensing still active for that user that you can go in and actually remove that to make it a true non-chargeable billable mailbox. We are doing further enhancements on that in 21.8, and I'll show you that here in a minute as well. We did improve recovery testing as well by introducing a progress bar. So this progress bar, you can see while a disaster recovery test is in progress, what percentage of the completion it's at. So that way you're not just sitting there waiting and waiting, trying to determine, you know, when am I going to get a result. So you'll see that progress bar now in the console as well. Now, if there are any questions on any of these items, please feel free to drop them into the question section. Like I said, I am going to try to actually open them up in product and show them to you as well. 21.7, we just did. 21.8, this is an enhancement that's coming out on the 14th, hashtag forward-looking statement. Obviously, we could shift that a bit if we run into any issues before GA. But we're improving the detection method for Microsoft 365 shared mailboxes. Today, if you go in and take an existing licensed user, block their login, then remove their license and flip them over to a shared mailbox, that's a great tool so that you can convert a user, maybe a seasonal user, to a shared mailbox so that they're not licensed, with the exception of maybe over the summer while they're volunteering or helping out inside the organization. In that kind of scenario, that shared mailbox becomes non-billable. Although we run into issues where if you maintain a lock on the login aspect for that, or you don't disconnect the license associated with that, or you've got historic OneDrive backup sitting there behind the scenes, it could still show up as a billable mailbox. So while I've instructed some customers on how to address or adjust for that, we are working on improvements that will help detect it better up front and correct any of those inconsistencies. We're also adding in additional dialogue so that as you're going through and building out your initial protection for Mail, OneDrive, and SharePoint, you'll actually see on the summary page the number of unique users for Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint, and it is this unique user count that we do configure billing on. So that way you can determine at the initial deployment, you know, how many users are going to be billable in this environment. Obviously, that could change from day to day as you make adjustments to your Office 365 environment, but at least you know up front before you hit the backup now button, what that configuration looks like and what that estimated charge is going to be based on unique users. Let's see what else was going on here. Billable. So yeah, display of billable users in addition to detected users. Let's see here. Stored usage. Let's see, I've got one more slide, I think, on 21.8. Yep. So the additional enhancement inside of 21.8, and this is going to be for a limited set of users that have already spoken with product management around getting a preview access to the subscription management portal. So I can't currently take on any new users here, although some of you may have signed up during our previous partner advisory groups or other office hours sessions to get access to this. Based on the feedback we do get from partners and this initial preview, you'll start to see this roll out to more partners and more visibility. So if you do have interest in this one, let me know. I can try to get you into a future group to get access to this. But the subscription management portal here is going to give you visibility into your license subscription for Enable Backup from inside the backup dashboard. So not only do you see usage as far as number of gigabytes or provisioned servers, workstations, documents, mailbox users, but you're going to see that tied to your actual billable contracts. So you can go in here, slice and dice that current usage, generate a report or an export, or compare that usage, look at it over various months based on a particular sub-distributor or reseller level. So while I've built some scripts and some automation that does something very similar, this is going to give it to you directly in product. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. Okay, so just a quick reminder here from a Q&A perspective, if there are any questions, comments, drop them into the question section. I'd be happy to answer those. Looks like we're doing good so far though on questions. So I'm going to bring product up here and give you guys a little bit more in depth into some of those updates that we've got coming out. Let's see here. Should be this window right here. One other quick note, if you are a user of our Microsoft 365 product, and you are getting this pop-up each time you log into your backup.management console or into the Essential Backup Management UI, you do need to acknowledge these. This is the switchover or the conversion from the the SolarWinds MSP to the standalone enabled tenant. This is something that does have to be done and authorized on your end. It's not something we can do for you. There is a deadline of October 1st for that. So if you've not made that change, that authorization just yet, please do so at your earliest convenience. If you have hit the button remind me in 7 days, you will need to wait until that 7 days concludes before you'll see that pop up again. So inside of backup.management, if you come in here and we want to look at the remote commands function, and remote commands is is a feature that you can use to adjust settings, send out commands, modify selections, configurations, exclusions, filters, set up bandwidth throttling in bulk from multiple devices all at one time. So you can select multiple devices here on the left. And then go to remote commands. You're going to notice a new UI enhancement here. For instance, the notification saying that it could take up to 5 minutes for a remote command to execute, assuming the device is online. The drop-down list of remote commands. We've organized these now based on primary, secondary, and advanced commands. Now you might ask, what is a primary versus a secondary or an advanced? Well, advanced commands are really going to be commands that you are instructed to utilize by tech support. There's very, very few cases where you're going to actually use an advanced command without first being prompted by technical support. Primary commands, these are the ones you might use on a day-to-day basis. For instance, aborting a current running backup process or restarting the backup service. So here we talk about process, so it actually is the running process, the backup manager itself. We would cycle that backup manager and the service itself would restart the process and get you reconnected. Setting the backup manager GUI password, this is so you can restrict remote access. Update the backup manager. If there is a pending auto update, then clicking auto update, update backup manager will require it to go out to the cloud, check for that new version. If it is available, it would auto update that for you ahead of schedule. Okay, so if we've not rolled out an auto update though, pushing that button is not going to do you any good. Additionally, when you do issue these commands here, my goal from a backup perspective is like backup now command would be to come down here and grab the verb here, the the command, and then I'm going to specify that what am I backing up here from a data source perspective, and I would come down and say let's grab file system and system state, a single space, and that is the syntax you would use to issue a remote command. We do show some examples here as well, like for instance data source file system, or talk about using a comma between bandwidth throttling days, or how to use a vertical bar between backup filters if you want to apply multiple filters as part of a single remote command. Now, while this is one way to apply settings in bulk, you can utilize the API to do this as well. Here we're going to be limited to the number of devices you can select, which is 200 at max. But let's say you wanted to apply a remote command to start a backup, or set a GUI password, or modify backup filters for more than 200 devices. I do have PowerShell commands that utilize the API and this backend interface to do that exact same thing. Okay, let's see what else do we have going on here. I did want to show one more thing around the usage here for Microsoft 365. So when we get into Microsoft 365, I'm going to bring up a particular view here on the left-hand side, and it's Microsoft 365 backups. It's going to adjust my view a little bit, so I'm only looking at protected domains now as part of my environment. You could come in here and add additional columns to this if you like, and then save your view as a unique name so that you've got that available to you as well. What you can see in here is a color bar for the last 28 days. And that is a roll-up of all of the underlying data sources. You can also see here that I've got my Exchange color bar, I've got my OneDrive color bar, and my SharePoint color bar. So you can see protection and configuration for those environments. You can see the number of regular mailboxes, shared mailboxes, protected OneDrive accounts, protected SharePoint users in here as well. And that's going to be tied to those unique users that we showed you in that previous screenshot. But if I drill in a little deeper here, we've got protected users, 2, 1, and 2, which correspond to 19 sites. That's that information we're going to summarize for you now, post-configuration, or right as you're getting ready to finalize your configuration on that summary screen. But from a unique user perspective, there are 2 unique users in this configuration. We're going to go to Exchange and OneDrive here. And I've got 7 regular mailboxes. I see 5 shared mailboxes. So if I select shared mailboxes, you'll notice that none of the shared show up under regular. And if I go to regular, none of those show up under shared. So we can see the total configuration right now for Office 365. I've got more mailboxes than I have licenses for. I come down here to users. User status, so active, these are all mailboxes that are configured inside of the system, although they are not all licensed. None of them show up as deleted. And then of course we can look at the actual Microsoft 365 license down here. 2 of those are licensed, 5 of them are unlicensed. 2 of them are protected, 5 of them are unprotected. So making the different selections here is going to allow you to filter down and see, do you have some overlap between shared mailboxes and regular mailboxes, or licensed or protected mailboxes. As we come over to protected users, here you're going to see that billable versus shared. So we've got, when I check the billable environment, we can see that I've got 2 billable users, none of which are shared. There's no overlap between them. If you do notice any overlap here when you select billable between shared or vice versa, then you do want to go check that setting for Office 365 that allows you to block login for that shared mailbox user. Typically, you do not need to block that user if they're a shared mailbox. You might have done that temporarily as you swapped over the configuration, but you want to go in and uncheck that right now to clear things up. And the updated enhancements for 21.8 are expected to further enhance that. So what we're going to do next here, I want to talk about some of the current project scripting and automation that I've been working on. And I'm going to give you guys some links to some various scripts and some automation and some other tools and resources as well. So some of the projects that I've got kind of slated for the remainder of the year here. I am looking at things like Datto and Veeam competitive. How can I help you as partners compete against image-based backup solutions or backup appliances that are out there, incumbents? This could also be utilized if you're utilizing these technologies today inside of your customers. How do you actively swap out or replace or move over from a Datto or a Veeam, an image-based backup and recovery solution or a virtualization-based solution? So I've got a calculator that I've built out around the Datto side. We've got calculations we've seen on and done on the Veeam side as well, which talk about usage, the amount of disk space required, or the investment required for that appliance, or those dedicated backup servers, or that NAS storage you're going to utilize to maintain those recovery points. Ultimately, what we're seeing is a 3 to 5x usage delta for the same number of retention points when you start dealing with image or appliance-based backups that are tied to images, just due to the high level of dedupe compression that we're doing based on our Delta True Delta backup technology. So that's something that's interesting to you guys. You'd like to talk more with me about that one, feel free to drop a note in the question section or reach out to me to schedule a one-on-one, and we can do that. I'm looking at Autotask and ConnectWise integrations as well. I've been pulling billing information and error messages and things of that nature. So just trying to work to be able to dump that into an Autotask or ConnectWise via API. Not really looking for a hard integration to be added into backup, but I want to give you guys some scripting and automation that can allow you to pull that data and dump it into your PSA tool if you're utilizing that. Now, if you're using a different PSA tool, by all means, feel free to drop that note in there as well. Let me know what you're using. What I'm building here might be able to be reutilized to go into an alternate PSA tool. I've been experimenting with an open source bootloader as well. The goal here is to see if I can provide virtual disaster recovery or bare metal recovery options for Linux. Today, as you may know, if we're using enable backup for Linux, we're doing file and folder, volume, or application level backup, but I'm not able to do a virtual disaster recovery or a bare metal recovery. Those environments are not currently supported, but I have been working with an open source bootloader to try to see if I can get that to give us that virtualization or that capture of the core operating system boot environment, and then be able to lay down that remaining data with enable backup. So that's a project that I'd be interested in. Once again, please just let me know, and I'll get you involved as we get a little bit deeper into the proof of concepts. Our development team and product management are actively working on a recovery console replacement. It's going to be tied in line with our recovery testing technology we utilize in console, hashtag forward-looking statement. But while they're working on that one, I actually have built out some scripting that allows us to launch and run that recovery console as a service behind the scenes. It still does require a little bit of creative scripting, and there's a few things I'm working on getting around as far as interacting with session 0 on the server where the recovery console runs, but making some good progress there. Let's see, a couple other things. I'm looking at bare metal recovery as a whole, the ability to include PowerShell possibly into a boot image, or sideload PowerShell into a boot image, so that we can do some additional Windows partition management, partition undelete, some other open source components that I've seen that I think might significantly enhance bare metal recovery. Mainly proof of concepts here, but I want to be able to show some of this off, interact with some partners on it, see if it has some interest before I hand it over to product management to see if it's something that would be worthwhile for inclusion in a future updated release. So David had a question about getting some information on how to resolve getting billed from mailboxes that are shared. Dave, I can definitely do that. What might be better though would be to actually schedule a one-on-one with me so that we can actually pull up your console, go through and actually troubleshoot a couple of them and kind of walk through and answer questions. So that brings me to a really good point here. There is a handout document in the GoToWebinar environment here. If you bring up that handout document, there is a link toward the bottom here to schedule a one-on-one nerd call. So that's my Calendly link. If you use that link, you can see my calendar out about 6 weeks. So go ahead and pick a session there. It's a 45-minute session. We can do a quick health check on your environment, look at your Office 365, and I can walk you through some of those settings. I don't have like a detailed document on it, and I'm expecting us to be able to correct a lot of it in the system with the 21.8 release, but I'd be happy to take you through it at your convenience. And that's open for anybody else on the call as well. If something I've mentioned here is of additional interest to you and you'd like to schedule a one-on-one nerd call, would happily talk with you there. Just feel free to grab the link, download the handout, and while you've got it, and hold on to that. Okay. Additional items here, links to the Success Center, the nerd bios, and nerd event calendar, not just myself, but all of the head nerds here at Enable. Our blog links, so you can see what we're talking about on social. I've got a lot of tips and tricks and best practices for utilizing the backup platform. So some really good reads there, especially if you've got some junior techs that are looking to take over backup inside of the organization. Social media links for and email addresses for both Lewis Pope, our head security nerd, and myself. Links to the Enable Reddit. You can interact and work with other partners there. Feedback, you'll see release notes, upcoming events, things of that nature. Links to upcoming office hours and bootcamp sessions, those are here as well. Success Center, various resources such as customer forums, feature requests, the release note link that I mentioned about, service status, you can see planned updates or planned downtime for the backup platform as well as the other Enable products. And then, of course, the MSP Institute, this is where you can get the links and recordings for the previous office hour sessions or boot camps. The last thing I have here, backup scripts, AMPs, and the automation cookbook. So any scripts that I talk about or show you today, those are available either on my GitHub page, or if they've been around for a while, they also will have been uploaded into the automation cookbook. So some automation and script updates. The link to the GitHub page is here on my screen as well. I've got some prior scripts here that I've recently went back and did some updates to. I told you we made some API enhancements some user enhancements around APIs and API restrictions. I've also went back and updated a lot of the scripts for the new Enable branding. And for additional security around scripting. So you'll notice that a lot of the scripts that you may have looked at previously have got a new update or a new version. You may want to pull those down. If you ever have any problem with any of the scripts, please reach out to me. My contact information is embedded in most of those scripts themselves. The most recent update that I've done, though, is really around the installation scripts. So I've got a generic installation PowerShell script designed to deploy automatic deployment or documents or do upgrades, uninstall, reinstall, those type of things. So I've recently updated both the script and the automation manager, the AMP file, with the ability to do deployment with additional throttling and bandwidth settings as part of the deployment. So that way you're not issuing remote commands or touching each device individually in order to set those settings. Those are slated for an upcoming profile enhancement, but I didn't want to wait until we enhance the profiles to give that to partners. So take a look at the AMP and a script file for that to simplify or automate your deployments. Even if you're not using our RMM tools, which would utilize the AMP, that PowerShell can be very useful for you. I've had Datto, Kaseya, Ninja, I'm trying to think of a handful of other RMM users grab those scripts and use them for deployment in other RMM platforms as well. Okay. What does the GitHub look like? Just for reference, if you've not been out to that. So we want to go to the Backup Nerd GitHub. Under backup scripts here, I've got these broken out based on function. So deployment, local speed vault, migration, some prototype scripting I've been working on, reporting, data retention, security, device settings, and troubleshooting. Information on how you download the scripts. You can either hit the green code button here and download the entire zip, or you can actually go into an individual category here, select a particular script, for instance, the enable backup deploy amp file right here. Here's my updated auto deploy from today with those new enhancements. So if you want to get that amp file, you can select this file, come here to the raw option, right click on this one and save link as. And that's going to pull down the individual file. It's going to ensure that it stays encoded the right way. If you just want to get a single script or a single amp file out of the system. If you come back and actually look at a PowerShell script though, like my deploy backup manager version 21 here, this guy's going to have all of those options that I mentioned, deploying documents, auto deploying with bandwidth and archiving settings, so on and so forth. Now, what does that look like? I did a deployment right before the session today. So this is a brand new deployment. You can see that it's added a profile to the device during deployment. It auto-generated the device name based on the net BIOS and the machine name, running the latest 21.7 build. If I go into preferences, it did automatically set performance or bandwidth throttling from 8 to 5 with a 5 megabit upload, unlimited download with no limitations on Saturday and Sunday. That's all adjustable via the AMP or via the script. It did also set up archiving rules, a default monthly archive, which is configured for the last day of the month. Once again, all of these settings are also configurable via that AMP or that PowerShell script. So hopefully it'll help you guys out with automating deployment and getting those initial setups going. Let's see where we're going now. We got about 10 minutes or so, I guess, before we need to wrap here. So if there are any questions, please drop them in. We're happy to address or dig in a little deeper. Some other additional scripts or some ideas I've been kicking around, and I'll be curious what you guys think of these. Would there be value in having this information in the console? I've done a new script around recovery testing statistics. This is available on my GitHub page. You can actually pull down all of your recovery testing environments. I'm thinking about adding a recovery testing screenshot wall to that script. So not only do you pull down the recovery testing statistics, but actually generate an HTML which has that small thumbnail for each and every one of your machines with its last boot status, or a script to go out and list and email newly added devices for a particular period, not only knowing what devices have been removed over a given period, but what new devices have been added. Billing errors, billing and errors. I talked about PSA integration, looking at scripts there that would allow us to grab the billing information or the error information and maybe port that over to ConnectWise, your Autotask environment. This may be further enhanced once we get that subscription management portal out, possibly the ability to grab that information and push it over directly into your PSA. Archiving. I've had customers that ask about confirmation of archiving. So you saw my script, which can turn archive rules on through deployment. Thinking about building a quick audit to go through and check to see if archiving is turned on for your various devices. When was the last time an archive session ran? Maybe what's the oldest archive session? That way you can look at it at a glance in the backup dashboard versus, say, having to click on a device and launch the backup client. So single pane of glass view for that. Additional ideas, setting setting alerts for things that are subject to change, like somebody's modified selections, modified filters, modified the path to a local speed vault, some type of flag or change management, if you will, at least from a visibility perspective in console, without having to drill down into a device to see that those changes have been made. Lots of questions around security lately, post Kaseya. I'm getting asked about the backup manager and deleted devices and what do we do about this? What do we do about that? How do we enhance security? Things of that nature. So if you do have questions around those, please feel free to book some time with me. We can go into depth on your individual security questions. So Marty was asking here, does the dedupe and compression that we have work on the local speed vault? Absolutely, Marty. So if you look at a given device, and you come into the overview, what you're going to see normally after a backup is ran, it's going to show you the amount of selected size and the amount of used storage. That used storage is the amount of data in the enabled cloud, and that used storage is the amount of space that would be consumed on the local speed vault. So it's fully compressed, encrypted, and deduped, and it's going to try to be synchronized with the cloud storage. The other question that Marty had here, keep me busy, Marty, good stuff, I appreciate these. So we've got a customer that's got a very large Microsoft SQL database or databases, and they're not able to get them backed up before it's time to start the next backup. Does it back up the whole SQL database file each time? So Marty, it does look at the entire database each time, but it's actually only backing up the delta changes in the database. So what that might mean is that they're doing a nightly maintenance routine. They might be recompacting or shrinking that database and causing significant change to the database each night. Therefore, we're running much longer. We could definitely talk about that one probably in a one-on-one and go in and look at a couple of use cases to see what's going on there in more detail. Also, if there's other maintenance routines that are happening at night while the backup routine is happening, you might be sitting idle for a large portion of that backup cycle. You could look at introducing a local speed vault if you don't have one. That could help speed up the local backup, and we'd synchronize behind the scenes. We'd also want to make sure that the backup accelerator is running. That's a change tracker that's designed to look at the database and know exactly where the changes are. But yeah, I would think we'd be able to back up a SQL database. Honestly, most databases within 15 minutes to an hour, even the large ones. So the fact that this one is overlapping, yeah, something is definitely configured either incorrectly or not optimally configured for the operation. So we should definitely look into that one. So, Marty, you're saying that in Essential, you're still seeing some 20.11s that are out there. I'll have to look into that one. Essential actually should be updated as well. So if you're seeing a 20.11, I do have an AMP file that you could run. It is available on my GitHub page. Let's see here. So there is a SolarWinds backup upgrade AMP. It's version 3 right now, so I need to update it for branding purposes, but that would work for you. And it's just going to download the most recent build and apply it to the various devices. It could be that you're still running an older version of Essential, and that may have a bearing on the version update. But I will check with product management on that one to figure out why you might still be running an older version. But yeah, you can definitely utilize my AMP here to force an update to the latest 21. At least a 21.6, but probably the 21.7 build. Okay. You are running the latest version of Essential. Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let's do schedule a one-on-one. We can actually knock some of these out all at one time. But I will double check in the meantime with product management to find out if we've got some versions of Essential that are still keeping an old version for some reason. We're doing pretty good on time. If there are any more questions, guys, please feel free to drop them in. We'll be happy to address those. I think the last section I have is really just give you guys a sneak peek at some of the blogs that I've completed over the last short period and some items that I'm working on for the near future. There's a whole series of monitoring, automation, data recovery blogs out there that talk you through, a day in the life. How do you manage by exception or define success across your various dashboards? How do you get emailed views that have those exceptions, in your inbox on a weekly or daily basis so that you can act upon those? Even if you're not dumping them into your PSA system, what do I act upon when I come into the backup environment first thing in the morning? It also is going to let you look at tracking your usage and tuning your selection so that you're not backing up data twice, so that you're not backing up the SQL database as part of the file system as part of the application. Oh, and by the way, you're backing up the SQL dump files, the .bak files it's making also. Something like that could effectively increase your selection size by 3x, and it is going to dramatically increase the backup window as well. That might be something, Marty, that we need to look at and just make sure you guys aren't double selecting or double or triple protecting, the data. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat. There is a blog article out there now as far as part 6, which was around securing your backup devices. I did this one, I think, late last year, but it's still very, very relevant today. It talks about how you secure your devices, what security is in place, so that you can ensure that, if your RMM platform or your local devices were compromised, that your backups are still successful and available for recovery. Deployment, I'm going to talk about some of the automation around scripting. Disaster ready, Amazon Azure takes you through some use cases for using public cloud for data recovery. And then my most recent automation around Mac and Linux is currently in the works. And I will be building out individual video and or blog sessions for the individual scripts that I've got on my GitHub in the automation cookbook. Just working on finalizing some of the enable branding updates and some of the later API updates before I go out and record those. I don't have to go back and touch the recordings yet again. So that's kind of a look at what's coming out from a blog perspective. Feel free to subscribe to that one. I will post about new items as they come out, probably there first and then second on social media. So Andy was asking if we've got a best practice list of folders and files to set as not to back up outside of the Windows registry key for that. So the Windows registry key is actually honored by us, Andy. So if you look at what's in the registry key, we're not going to back that data up. So you can exclude, you can not exclude. You cannot exclude that one. You can choose to ignore anything that's in the Windows registry key from adding it into your profiles, your exclusions. From a best practices perspective, typically it's going to be your patch directories, your antivirus log directories, the download directories for scripts and automation, the Windows update, the Windows.old directory. Those kind of things are good options to exclude. Any dump directories or temp directories where you've got files that have got minimal restore recovery value. Those are some good places to start. I do have a script available that might be helpful for you to help identify some of the files that are part of your daily change, and you can use that to identify if you want to add specific exclusions across your customers. And the reason I just say patch or AV is I don't know if you're utilizing our patch or you're utilizing somebody else's RMM tool or AV tools. They're all going to vary a little bit. The temporary internet file paths, wherever the cookies and temporary downloads are, those are good options to exclude. Let me think here. OST files. Typically an OST file's got minimal recovery value, especially if you're doing Office 365 backups or you're backing up their PSTs or you're getting the Exchange server proper as the source. But then again, I don't exclude it automatically because in a pinch, having an OST file with some third-party navigation and mounting tools, you could actually recover a mailbox that way and convert it to PST. So we are very careful about adding auto exclusions into the systems. We want to make sure that there's no reason somebody would want to exclude it. You did mention the Windows registry key. That's worth looking at because we do honor it, and for that reason there is like the client-side cache, the CSC folder. That's where redirected folders or synchronized folders are stored if you're doing folder redirection and things like that. So we don't back up the CSC based on a Microsoft recommendation. But I've had customers that wanted it protected. So we've had them go in and basically clean or remove items out of that files not to backup registry key. If you do that to ensure you are getting protection, you're going to want to do some type of automation or scripting to check for a particular key and constantly try to remove that key if it exists, because Windows will periodically update or re-add items that you remove from that key. We don't update it, but we do honor it. The script that I was talking about there for that, let's see, it's going to be on my GitHub under, let's see, let me check under prototypes really quick. Deleted, no, that's not it. Scripting, let's try reporting. No, there we go, reporting. Get folder, get set, get session files, this one here. So this get sessions file script can be used to either get the list of file size sent, the list of largest ESX servers backed up, the largest, the Hyper-V count, or locations where you're backing up VHDs as part of the file system. So you can use it with a couple different switches. But if you use it for file system sent size, you can see a list of the largest files that are part of your daily backups. You can turn around and identify that you're backing up a SQL dump, or you're backing up patch or AV files. It will return, I think by default, the 50 largest files per each individual device, looking at the most recent sessions. You'll just run this against your device set. It'll grab 20 devices by default and create a CSV file for you, or an Excel file for you, of the largest files that are being processed each day. Look through that list and you can determine if these are files that have zero recovery or minimal recovery value, and that may help you determine, yes, there's a patch directory or an antivirus directory that, it's just the downloaded update that's expanded, applied, and then deleted. There is also a deleted list of files you can look at per device that will give you some view as to something that was here yesterday but not here today. Let's see if we've got any other questions that are going through here. I think we're doing pretty good. I did mention grabbing some time with me as well. Final wrap up here before we close out. If we've got leftovers from an office hour session like this, you want to talk about scripting, automation, you've got, customer sat type of concerns, you want to just provide feedback, or you're looking at troubleshooting or migration, you want to get better detailed reporting, you want to talk competitive or best practices, those are all reasons to reach out and book a one-on-one nerd session. You'll be able to see my calendar out, like I said, about 6 weeks. Use that link in the handout and, book some time. If you can't find something that works, just drop me a quick email. We'll see if we can adjust something. I do get wrapped up in boot camps and presentations like this, offsite training, travel and events from time to time. Not so much over the last year, but from time to time. So if you can't find something that works, just reach out to me directly and we can see if we can schedule something that's maybe off hours or something that fits your schedule. But there should be a EMEA time as well as Asia Pacific overlap. And I am US East Coast based, but I do make arrangements for Europe and Asia Pacific. Good deal, guys. So I want to thank everybody here once again. We do appreciate your time and your attention. Join us next month for office hours. Check out the bootcamp schedule. I've got an upcoming introduction to scripting and automation bootcamp that will be conducted, I think, in October. So just finalizing the content for that one, but feel free to register for that one if it's something that would be of interest to you. Okay. With that, guys, I'll let you get back to your day. Have a great day, and see you next month.